is it?
On Sunday morning, one of our U-2s took these pictures. The Soviets are putting ballistic missiles into Cuba.
Morning, gentlemen. Let's have it.
In the southeast, as far north as Washington, D.C., are in range of these weapons, and in the event of a launch would have only 5 minutes of warning.
In those 5 minutes, they could kill 80 million Americans.
We have to get those missiles out.
The Soviet understands only one language, action.
Sir, I think we have to issue pre-invasion orders.
I got a bad feeling about what's going on in there. We've got a bunch of smart guys. We lock them in a room and we come up with some solution.
Strikes is a minimum response the Joint Chiefs will accept.
No. There is more than one option here.
America is in danger from nuclear war.
This is a setup. They want a war, Jack, and they're arranging things to get one.
You're in a pretty bad fix, Mr. President.
Well, maybe you haven't noticed you're in it with me.
3, 2.
Good evening, my fellow citizens.
A lot of things are going wrong today.
More things go wrong, people will become more nervous, and it will be
Very hard to avoid going to war.
Sometimes there is only one right choice, and you thank God when it's so clear.
Stop that firing! Nobody ever gets between us.
I'm prepared to wait for my answer until hell freezes over.
I am the Commander-in-Chief of the United States, and I say when we go to war.
Hello and welcome to the pod, and it's Film Club time and 13 Days, directed by Roger Donaldson, starring Kevin Costner, Bruce Greenwood and Stephen Culp. As you may have detected from the intro there, it's a movie based on the Cuban Missile Crisis, and this is part of a Jack Kennedy double bill on the pod as we commemorate the 60th anniversary of his assassination on the 22nd of November, 1963. Coming up next week will be the big one, JFK, directed by Oliver Stone, also starring Kevin Costner. The Cuban Missile Crisis was probably the closest we came to World War III when the Soviets under Nikita Khrushchev moved ballistic missiles into Cuba, which is just 90 miles from the US coast. Under the Kennedy administration, which included his brother Bobby, they negotiated with the Soviets a compromise, thereby averting the threat of war. The movie is a fantastic depiction of those events and makes for a great Kennedy double bill with next week's film. Coming up on the pod, we've got a panel discussion on books of the year, pods on Charles I, female spies, World War II Italy, and much, much more. So please do share with the like-minded, rate and review. Until then, I'm going to hand you over to the Film Club. Tim Hewitt, welcome back to the Film Club.
Hi, thanks for having me again.
And today's film is 13 Days. So listeners, we're doing a JFK double bill. This week is actually this month is the 60th anniversary of the killing of John F. Kennedy in Dallas, Texas. And in honor of the president, we are going to be doing a double bill film club. So first up is 13 Days, directed by Roger Donaldson, which is all about the Cuban Missile Crisis, which took place a year before he was assassinated. And then next week, we have JFK, Oliver Stone's masterpiece. And so we'll start with 13 Days. So, Tim, 13 Days.
Yeah.
Roger Donaldson. So it's a same director as who directed The Bounty.
Yeah, another historical brilliant film, obviously, that we did, but he's actually a really interesting director, not often mentioned in the top tiers of film directors, because he has done quite varied films. One film on his filmography that people would find quite surprising, with things like The Bounty, 13 Days, The World's Fastest Indian, a great Anthony Hopkins film, and quite serious subject matters. Then he come along and he does things like Species and Cocktail with Tom Cruise.
Did he make Cocktail?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Very varied director. Species, not so sure about. I mean, it's a guilty pleasure in a way if you just want something on a I don't know, Saturday afternoon where you don't have to really concentrate. But 13 Days, I think, is this is a difficult thing to judge, but I think it's probably his strongest film.
So you prefer this to The Bounty then?
It's not so much that I prefer it. It all depends. Like when someone asks, "What's your favorite film?" I mean, it's impossible to say. Whether you enjoy it more, or whether you feel it's more important, or whether you feel that just as a technical piece, it's superior. Difficult to say. But I think, I don't know, strongest film. I would say probably in terms of an all-round piece of art. I'm not sure, but it's so gripping. It's a little bit like what we're going to be discussing next, in the sense that it shouldn't be gripping. It should be a little bit boring.
Yeah, because it's men in
a
conference rooms.
Yeah,
talking.
But the stakes are so high. I mean, has there been anything in modern history more threatening and more potentially horrific?
I think not that had so much attention. There was a nuclear missile it was nearly a nuclear attack in 1983, but that was down to error rather than
right. I mean, you could argue, like Christopher Nolan argues that the pressing of the button in the Trinity test was probably the most dramatic moment in history, in human history, because of the possible repercussions.
I'm not sure I agree with him there. I could argue the Battle of Marathon, maybe. But I think that's Nolan trying to flog his film, isn't it?
His film. But I mean, it's understandable. But this, I suppose, the Cuban Missile Crisis was, the imminent threat. Has any other point in history, has America got to DEFCON 3 before?
DEFCON 3?
Yeah.
That's not that bad, is it?
It's pretty bad, I think.
What you mean, DEFCON 1?
No, DEFCON 1 is
war.
War has started, or is about to, literally about to. And DEFCON 2 is almost that scenario. I think DEFCON 3 is pretty bad, but it's obviously not as bad as 2 and 1. But this is American levels. We have slightly different levels here. I think we just have like severe.
But I think they get to DEFCON 2, don't they?
I don't think officially. There's this. I think, having watched the film a few times, but I watched it again last night. He does say that.
Yeah, no, they do go to DEFCON.
His orders, but against Kennedy's orders.
Yes.
It was raised to 2, and he has a bit of a hissy fit about that, understandably.
Well, yeah, I mean, some of that we can get onto that when we talk about sort of.
But the point is that it's a film with gravely high stakes.
Yes.
And it's done very, very well indeed. I mean, it's very suspenseful. Even men talking in a room. It's like it's quite often like a chess game, in fact, because or a blind chess game where the Americans are constantly trying to guess the Russians' next move, or what they would do if, with all their, I think, 3 different scenarios that they propose. And it's really, I mean, it does keep you on the edge of your seat. So I think it is a great film.
Yeah, and great performances. So Bruce Greenwood plays John F. Kennedy. Stephen Culp plays Robert F. Kennedy.
Performance.
Yes.
Stephen Culp.
And then, of course, Kevin Costner, who's the main star of the show, plays the special assistant to the president, Kenneth O'Donnell. Yes.
And he is a producer, I believe, as well.
Yeah, he gets it. O'Donnell's part of the sort of Boston Mafia.
Yes.
Or Camelot, or what they called it.
But childhood friend of Robert Kennedy, and through him, I think, became friends with Jack Kennedy as well.
And Costner is clearly he's very well known for playing Jim Garrison in JFK, which we're doing next. But does this mean, I always assume this, therefore, because he had done JFK, one assumes that Costner is a huge JFK fan?
Good question. I don't actually know. Obviously, JFK wasn't his film. It was Oliver Stone's baby, obsession. I would go so far as to say. And he cast, I think others were up. I think Harrison Ford was up for JFK, I believe. Probably others. I mean, there's always a list of people, I suppose, in these things. But maybe through that, Costner became fascinated with the whole notion and jumped at the chance of doing something like this, which obviously deals with it head on. I mean, the Kennedys head on, as opposed to an investigation afterwards. But I think he's really good, Kevin Costner. I mean, he's just a really good. He's a very good actor, but he is a really good movie star.
Yeah, he's a movie star.
He's so watchable, and it is. I find it very, very enjoyable when he gets angry, which he doesn't often in his films, or at least really dramatically angry. And he when he loses it, I think he's quite electrifying to watch.
Well, it cost 80 million to make, and this was in 2000. So
it's a great big cast, very big cast.
Yeah, because I don't understand where the 80 million went when you look at the
Kevin
film.
Costner. He probably
it made 66 million, well. So it lost. Yeah. It didn't make any money.
I mean, it's not a box office type film, really, is it? I mean, it's albeit having a star like him, but we do know that films of this ilk can make money. Oppenheimer is a recent example, but that may be due to post-COVID. Want to go back to the cinema. So I don't know, but period recreation, I don't know if the production design actually would cost that much in this film, because it's not like a Victorian era recreation style. But I'm assuming a lot on the actors' fees. Costner in particular, director probably got quite a bit.
It was very well reviewed.
I mean, it's it's really good. It's a really good film. You can't really, unless it's not your type of thing, to watch a bunch of male politicians fighting over each other and over what could be considered as, I don't know. I always think of these things in the modern world, a bunch of kids just fighting about, no, I want to move my ship here. I want to move my ship here. And here, look, we can put our missiles here. I mean,
I do recommend reading Abyss, which is a book by Max Hastings on the Cuban Missile Crisis. Came out, I think, is it last year? I think, and it's really, really good. But it does show how all these politicians, all these male, they're kind of, Khrushchev sort of starts all this by moving the missiles in as a kind of, he assumed that Kennedy was weak because he was young and he was liberal, and so Khrushchev saw that as a weakness. And
which, of course, some of Kennedy's staff saw him like that, but both Kennedys.
Possibly. I mean, Robert F. Kennedy actually at this time was known as he was the tough one. He'd gone after the mafia and Jimmy Hoffa.
Oh yeah.
He was known as being a lot more sort of tough than Kennedy, and so I think that whole idea around Camelot as well. Obviously, Jackie Kennedy, this sort of very glamorous woman. It did give off the vibe that maybe they were a bit lightweight, however unfairly that is. And so Khrushchev did try and exploit that. But obviously it blew up in his face because that's touched. I mean, quite a few of his admirals and the Air Force, the commander in the Royal Air Force, in the American Air Force, kind of comment on Kennedy's indecision. Yeah, so that's one of the interesting, rather I guess it's controversial, and there's no doubt about it that the chiefs of staff of the US military were keen on a more robust response. And Curtis LeMay, who was the head of the US Air Force, who's played by Kevin Conway brilliantly. And if he looks a little bit like LeMay. LeMay was he had a brilliant World War II. He was a very successful Air Force general during the Second World War. but he was hugely aggressive when it came to Cuba and Russia, and was very keen on invasion and all that kind of stuff. So the film does get that right.
Yeah, and you know, he's the guy who when the pilot they're taking photographs over Cuba and the pilot's shot at, you know, and O'Donnell says, "Don't get shot at," to him over the phone, because our response is going to have to be quite dire. And then as soon as the pilot's back, and he goes into that room essentially for a debriefing, I suppose. LeMay says, you know, did they so much as fire a BB gun at you? Desperate. Obviously, they're desperate for him to say, yes, they shot at us, so they could just steam in. You know, very, very. It's interesting that these commanders, the chief of staff, all of these people are. You can see it immediately that they, and in fact, O'Donnell says this to Kennedy behind closed doors. He said they are desperate for a war. They want as much conflict.
Yeah, there's a bit of Cuba as well is this hugely emotional subject for, particularly during that time, because Fidel Castro had overthrown the US-backed Batista regime, which I think was a pretty distasteful regime itself. Obviously, you know, we know all about the mafia links. Film The Godfather, there's a lot of that set in Cuba.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously which bleeds into the rest of Kennedy's administration. You know, up until pretty much his. Well, in fact, that's
you get the Bay of Pigs
theories. Bay of Pigs. One of the reasons why. Well, one of the theories is to, you know, that backs the assassination, depending on which road you want to go down. Yeah, so the Castro thing is as Donald Sutherland says in JFK. Then we get into the Cuban thing, not so good. That's to come. So it's you know, Kennedy was in a very difficult position. I mean, the guy says, LeMay says, "You're in a bit of a fix, Mr. President."
Yeah, well, I wanted to talk about that particular scene because that is very accurate. There is it is famously, we can talk about it now, I suppose, but yes, when LeMay goes where he's in the Oval Office and he says to Kennedy, as you say, you're in a bit of a fix, Mr. President. That actually happened, and it's an extraordinary way that the way a chief of staff of the U.S. Air Force would speak to their commander in chief like that. It's
and Kennedy says, "What did you say?"
I think yes.
And he says, "You're in a bit of a fix," and he goes, "Well, if you haven't noticed, you're in it with me."
Yeah. That's very good. That's definitely up there with one of my favorite scenes in there.
Yeah.
So with the Bay of Pigs disaster, which was when the Cuban exiles backed by the CIA were delivered, they had an amphibious landing at the Bay of Pigs in Cuba, and they didn't have any kind of air support, and it was a complete slaughter. And that meant that because Kennedy hadn't provided that air support, it meant that there were a lot of, I guess, to quote Donald Sutherland in JFK, a lot of pissed off people.
Yeah.
And so he had alienated, I think, portions of the Central Intelligence Agency and the and certain elements of the military, I think. But it's interesting because in this film you have the head of the CIA who is played by Peter White, plays John McCone. Now John McCone was very interesting because he was actually very key part in identifying the fact that it's all laid out very well in Max Hastings' book, but John McCone is a key part in identifying the missiles being moved into Cuba. And the Kennedys were a little bit slow on picking up on what had happened, was going on in Cuba. And it was John McCone, the head of the CIA, who was basically, he kind of corralled the cabinet or the senior members of the US government into understanding the threat that the missiles posed and the fact that they were in. So that's not really covered in the film, but it's an interesting.
In fact, he's quite a fleeting character, I think, in the film, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, yes, exactly. I mean, we'll get on to inaccuracies and the huge role that Kenneth O'Donnell, played by Kevin Costner, plays in the film. Completely dwarfs the head of the CIA's role in the film, which
Yeah. Well, I think they, they wanted to get obviously get into a very personal relationship with the Kennedys as well. So having that closeness, which you get from the very beginning, when he speaks to Jackie, are you trying to go around me? He's basically, he's the guy you go to if you want anything to do. Even his wife, even Kennedy's wife, is like, okay. Very, very quick at establishing a personal relationship as soon as he sits down in the Oval Office and starts eating John F. Kennedy's crumpet. Childhood friends established very, very quickly. So, they probably went, that's the route we're going to take in this film. We're not going to do, otherwise it's going to be slightly, I would say, a distance from the personal aspects of the Kennedys. And
I get it as a plot device. It's very important in the film, but in reality, historically, O'Donnell was not telling the chiefs of staff and the president what should happen and what might happen.
There's a great moment actually in that scene that you like, when the RAF commander McCain,
the US Air Force commander.
Yes. Did I say Royal again?
Yes.
What's wrong with me? This is America. Okay, so the US. Yes.
If it was an RAF man, he would have a Teddy sort of Thomas moustache, wouldn't he? And he'd have a cravat.
That's true. Actually,
have a cravat.
But they still wear blue, which is really confusing. In that scene where he's talking to Kennedy and he's sort of very slowly stepping towards him, and O'Donnell Costner steps in between them and gives him that's far enough. It's like, Kennedy's protective brother almost, except the other brothers in the room. It's don't get too close because I'm the shield. But it's a nice move. I like it. I think it's really cool, and I think Costner is very, very, very cool.
I don't know. Does he nail the accent? I'm not an expert in Boston accents.
Yeah. I mean, I think the brothers, I just feel you can tell that Greenwood must have studied Kennedy. Well, actually, both of them probably studied both Kennedys. But, that I would say, having watched a lot of actual real Kennedy footage, they nail it.
Well, there's a moment, I think, a few times, he slightly grimaces when sitting down or getting up and sitting down. And I don't know if you detected that.
Because he wasn't well.
He had terrible back problems.
Yeah. I mean, awful. He was on, I don't know, sorry, I don't know the drug, but I mean, it was terrible at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he does a lot of, he sort of interrupts himself because he's obviously in pain.
But they don't mention it explicitly, which I liked. No. It was really good.
Yeah, it was just subtle, which is really good because, in fact, it was probably like that. He probably wasn't someone who would just constantly whinge about pains in his back. The Costner, I think Costner does really well with the accent.
The good thing that they do about this film, which I think JFK, I think fails in, is they keep the family scenes to a minimum.
Yes,
a bare minimum.
Yeah, except you and I adore the opening scene with Costner at the breakfast table when he's about to sign his son's, is it an absentee slip?
Yes.
This is your report card. Yeah, it's nice because that essentially also, because he's about to leave for work and he kisses his wife goodbye and then he looks at his son and goes, I'm going to talk to you later. But that, is I would say a device of establishing this is okay. This guy is in control. You don't cross him. You don't try to pull the wool over his eyes. Just the man to advise President Kennedy in a situation like the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Also, a little bit of a shout out to Dylan Baker, who's always good. Dylan Baker plays
McNamara.
Yeah.
He's super good in this.
Now, Dylan Baker, I remember him from a film called Happiness.
Yeah, really not a very happy film.
Plays a paedophile in that.
Yeah. Excellent supporting character actor who's really good in everything. And people, I think the viewers would go, when they see his face, they'll go, I've seen him in stuff. He's in one of my favorite scenes in this film when they start firing flares at the Russian ships and McNamara has a real go at the Admiral. It's super, super good performance.
Yeah, you mentioned the naval side of things. There's a funny episode that actually happened that they didn't show in the film, and if you saw it, you'd think it was so far-fetched it couldn't possibly have happened.
Maybe that's why they cut it out.
But of course it happened, which was, and this is in Lawrence Friedman's book called Command. He deals with the Cuban Missile Crisis, and Lawrence Friedman is a very distinguished historian, sat on the Chilcot inquiry into the Iraq War. He's a hugely respected figure in the history world. He's a little bit more relaxed over the Kennedy and chiefs of staff sort of buttressing up together. He takes a more sort of sanguine view that this is, whilst there were disagreements, ultimately the right thing happened in the end. So we should all sort of be less, not worry so much. Whereas Max Hastings is a lot tougher on the chiefs of staff. Just worth thinking about. But yes, the naval episode where a Russian submarine was under the impression that it was about to be attacked by US Navy ships, and they were all on edge, as we've been saying earlier. We were close to war. War may well have meant nuclear weapons, so the stakes, as you said earlier, couldn't be higher. A Russian submarine, Soviet submarine, assumed or was thinking that the US Navy were about to open fire, so were refusing to surface, and I think were looking to maybe even open fire. And so a quick thinking US Navy captain of a destroyer, he had the ships banned, put them out on deck and made them play jazz music. And the Soviet submarine commander saw that and then realized, okay, we're not on the brink of war.
That would have been great to put in the film.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it's not the one where Kennedy says, bring that submarine to the surface, to the naval captain.
I don't know if it's that exact moment. It may well have been. But it's a funny little episode that.
That whole sequence in 13 Days is really suspenseful, cutting back and forth from the sea to a room full of men. I mean, scenes like that's what makes the film, I think, really an edge of the seat type film. But I think that that would have been really quite a nice touch to put that in, but it was probably deemed not plot worthy enough.
Yeah. And then the other thing I wanted to just briefly mention is that, which I don't think the film gets quite right, is the actor who plays General Maxwell Taylor, who was chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the head of the U.S. military, is played by Bill Smitrovich. Maxwell Taylor was a commander of the 101st Airborne during Operation Market Garden. He was also had a very successful Second World War. I think him and Kennedy actually did get on quite well, which isn't quite reflected in the film. And then one other thing that we should mention is, and I don't know if this is going to get onto one of your favorite scenes, but the actor who plays the pilot, who he calls Furt, the pilot who is in command of the photographic mission. The actor who plays him is called Christopher Lawford. He is the son of Peter Lawford, and his mother was Patricia Kennedy Lawford. So that was the sister of JFK and RFK. So that actor, his uncle, was John.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
I did not know that. He is in Roger Donaldson's The World's Fastest Indian. A good actor, really good actor, perfectly cast in this. He's absolutely an Air Force pilot and a very cool one when he gets out and he's like, damn sparrows.
There be 30mm sparrows?
Yeah. Or 40mm. There was a bird strike, and that's all there is to it. It's really
good.
Cool. Good scene.
It's good that.
I also want to mention one actor who has always he's popped up in stuff here, there, and everywhere, and he is Dakin Matthews, who plays Arthur Lundahl.
Was he brought in the photographs at the beginning of the film?
Yes, he's the one who discovers Yes, exactly. He's the one who discovers the photos of the missiles, or rather sees the missiles and comes in with the aerial reconnaissance stuff. And he gives a really great performance. He's one up there with all the others, basically, I would say all of these guys, where there's no sort of demonstrative showy acting. It's just absolute, a little bit like Simon Baker in Margin Call. You know, it's like they're not actors, they're the real people.
Yes,
They're that convincing.
Yes.
It's one of those great, and my favorite sort of ensemble films. You know, that no one sort of tries to steal the limelight. You know, it's very matter of fact. Even the two Kennedys, I would say. You know, Costner's the star, and his presence is very much felt, like a little bit like a play. I would say that all these guys are sort of, you know, just portraying characters pretty much down the line. No kind of big emotional scenes that trying to steer towards an award of some sort. It's just my favorite type of acting.
Well, let's get on to our nominations then. So for best scene, so I think you just mentioned Dakin Matthews playing Arthur Lundahl. That I think that scene when they arrive in the photographs, it's right in the opening credits almost. The photographs arrive in the White House, and Kennedy is shown them. I think McGeorge Bundy, who is played by Frank Wood, who's the national security advisor, he sort of says to O'Donnell, Costner, you know, we need to see him ASAP. And
Kennedy comes out to Costner's desk and goes, "You better get in here."
Yeah. See, this is what I find a bit laughable. Oh my God, we've got to get the special advisor to Kennedy.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what to do without.
Well, and he goes, "You spent time looking at photographs, didn't you? What do these look like to you?" And this, you know, when that, I think you get that you do get a bit of a dramatic moment, actually. Come to think of it, a cinematic moment when O'Donnell says, he kind of goes, I can't remember the exact line, but it's something like, "Jesus, Mary, God, Joseph," or something. No, it's not that dramatic, but it's like
it is a bit. It is. Yes. So I love that scene. I love the scene in the first XCOM. The they created a new meeting, which actually you see them talk about creating. XCOM is what it was called, the Executive Committee. And so that's when they're all, all old men sitting around a table talking about the future of the world. And then but I think my favorite scene is the one we've talked about, is when Curtis LeMay is in the office and they have Kennedy have their little tantrum.
Because it's accurate, or because you like drama?
Bit of both, really. I like the accuracy, but I just think you've got Bruce Greenwood there playing a man he's just, imagine the pressure on Kennedy.
Equally, talking about pressure, equally when they're in, it's not the Oval Office, but they're around that large conference table and they're presenting the three options, which Kennedy summarizes. He goes, "Okay, so the three options are we strike, we do something else, and do something else." And then they're all there waiting, and he's like, "Thank you, gentlemen." And he just gets up and leaves with O'Donnell and Robert Kennedy. And everyone's like, "What the heck just happened?" You know, because they were expecting a decision. You know, they thought I froze in there. That another scene about pressure. I like your scene a lot. I also love the scene where McNamara is having a go at the naval admiral. I think is he an admiral? I'm not sure.
Yes.
However, there is another scene for me that is I love. It's the scene that the first scene I think of when I think of 13 Days, if I haven't seen it for a while. And it does have to do with the phenomenal performance that I think Stephen Culp gives as Robert Kennedy. And that's when he goes to talk to the Russian ambassador near the end and essentially pleads with him. Only because I think that scene should be shown in all drama schools as an example of great acting and what you would call playing your objective, playing your action. Because that is exactly what Stephen Culp is doing in that scene, without sort of begging. He's not. I mean, he's sitting in a chair, just talking, and he's not doing anything overly dramatic or anything. But he's just you see in his eyes everything, the way he says everything. It's this. This is a desperate moment that I need to convince this guy. Now, we could put that in my best performance, if you like. We could, but that's one of my favorite scenes in the film. But again, it's two guys sitting opposite each other in a chair, so you may.
No, I like that, but I think it's like the trouble with that scene is it sort of cuts over to what's going on next door in anteroom
with Costner holding a ball,
whistling. But then there's a Soviet woman opposite him, and you get this sort of weird "I'm a friend," and I found that a bit corny.
Yeah, I agree. It could have been left. That scene with Robert Kennedy could have been left alone. I don't know. Maybe it was trying to dissipate the tension, which is silly because it didn't need to. The whole point was that the scene with Bobby
Tension's
Kennedy
good. Tension's good.
Tension is exactly. Tension, conflict is good. So, but that's a lot down to performance. Okay, so maybe I think maybe your favorite scene, your scene in the Oval Office is brilliant because it's almost like a turn. It's also the turning point where you realize the pressure that Kennedy is under. That's where it all starts to build. So I'm quite happy to go with that scene.
Great. Okay, so that wins the best scene, and so the Curtis LeMay showdown with John F. Kennedy. And right, so we'll go for best performance. So I think really I've only got 3 nominations. They are Bruce Greenwood as John Kennedy, Kevin Costner as Kenny O'Donnell, and then Stephen Culp.
So the 3 leads.
And I think I'm going to go with Stephen Culp.
I think Kennedy is Greenwood is great. He's
Canadian
great.
actor, isn't he?
Yeah. Listeners would know him from all sorts of films. He was in The Post, Steven Spielberg's The Post. He was in Star Trek, the new Star Trek ones. Really good actor and nails Kennedy. I think he's got him down. Even his slight not stoop, but because of his ailments, and his walk, he's got him. It's a really cool shot at the end where they're all 3 of them are together and they walk outside the Oval Office in the White House on that sort of, there's a portico area, and they walk slowly and it sort of morphs into the Kennedy shadow. I think it's like the last shot of the film. And I was like, is that Greenwood, or have they somehow morphed it into the real Kennedy? Because he really does have his walk down and his speech pattern and his accent, I think, is
and the hair
convincing. And the hair.
Great hair.
So I would probably give him very close number 2.
Yeah.
I think Stephen Culp is spot on because he has a little more, I would say, desperation in his character. Probably from what you said about him being the tougher of the 2. When he's like, I'll do it. I can't remember what the decision is, but he's like, they're talking outside, and he's really he always is putting his not opinion, but his suggestions forward, his suggestions in inverted commas, and is so determined, and he's so determined that his presence is felt throughout he's always there in support. And I think I just think his performance is great.
It's amazing. It's amazing that this film didn't do better because it's the 2, Robert Kennedy and John Kennedy, both killed young, which in many ways, and not wanting to sound too heartless, but it was great for their political legacies because people can project what they feel they could have become. So they couldn't disappoint anyone. That's what I mean there. But it's amazing that the film didn't do well because both Robert and John Kennedy are they're huge figures in America.
Absolutely.
And they're portrayed very sympathetically in this film. It's amazing to me that more people didn't go and see it. Maybe ultimately it's the fact that it's all talking and there's no.
Yeah, but it's weird because JFK, for example, is 3 hours of talking. Well, I mean, it's 3 hours of talking, but the filmmaking technique is so astonishing and stunning in its editing and stuff.
But the Cuban Missile Crisis is this great victory of Kennedy administration.
I think people maybe are more drawn. I don't know. This is terribly morbid point of view, but are we more drawn to the tragedy in art than, I don't know, some sort of victory? But JFK has an astonishing array of famous actors in bit parts that pop up throughout. It was probably
this film doesn't
about conspiracy. It's much more it's more attractive, I guess, in that sense. Whereas this is, I don't know, and the fact that this is kind of the only star is Kevin Costner, really. 13 Days, the title, JFK, much more blatant. We know what we're getting there. I guess that's a guess, but who knows why a film will do well and some films don't. I think that and another film, Emilio Estevez directed and starred in, Bobby, surrounding the night of Bobby Kennedy's death.
I didn't like that film.
Not as insightful and gripping. It's more like a bunch of characters that are around, I think, that night.
It was disappointing.
I thought it was okay, actually. I liked it. but it's not a monumental piece of work.
Christian Slater was in that, wasn't he?
Yes, yeah.
He's very good.
And Anthony Hopkins, Emilio Estevez as well. Say, so I don't know. It didn't, but they are highly sympathetic characters, and of course, live long enough to see yourself become a villain or be assassinated at a young age to become a martyr. I can't remember. It's probably Shakespeare or something. I'm not sure. Forget that.
You read your Shakespeare?
Yeah, read Shakespeare book. Yeah, I do. And the thing is what's I think is an interesting hint towards the end of the film is the upcoming struggle that Kennedy's going to have even after this. These two, the Bobby and Jack Kennedy, are always, well, not always, but quite often for the most part of the film, are together, and they're kind of this team that I do think a lot of American politicians, people in power, looked at them and thought these guys are doing things very differently to what's been done before. They are young, the youngest president ever, kind of a bitterness towards them, perhaps Kennedy's victory over Nixon, and the fact that seeds were being planted for something tragic to, this is if you think conspiracy. I don't know. We'll get onto that. We're going to get onto that. But it's sort of, if you know the history, if you know the fact that something awful is going to happen, he's going to be assassinated, there's going to be a conspiracy theory coming, you can kind of watch this film and go, well, there are hints here that there are a hell of a lot of people who aren't happy with him and the way he does things. And he fired CIA guys when he came into power. Must have left a very bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. So it's interesting. So that's to come when we get on to JFK.
It is indeed. Well, okay. So we haven't done most inaccurate scene. Now, I favour any scene where Kenny O'Donnell is telling the chiefs of staff and the president what is explaining for them, because obviously they need him to explain, and telling them what to do, which is quite a lot of the film.
I want you to sit down, but you're the president of the United States. They'll wait for you. And pours him a drink.
Well, actually, it's interesting.
I like that scene.
There is a scene where O'Donnell goes to see his son play rugby or American football, and when he gets back, he's all worried and nervous, I think, and so he drinks a large measure of whiskey. And that's a sad portent of what happens to Kenneth O'Donnell, because he was in the car behind Kennedy when Kennedy was shot, and I think it killed him. He became an alcoholic, and I think he died in 1969.
Yeah, he because, and then after Bobby Kennedy I think it was after Bobby Kennedy that he really took to drinking.
1977, he died in 1977, alcoholism.
At 50, not old at all. He was in his 50s. Yeah, really sad, because you do think those were his two close childhood friends, both killed, I mean, the Kennedy family, just in general, had literally the worst luck. If you think about all of them, what happened to them. Yeah, it's a sad thing to know that O'Donnell, what happened to him. But most inaccurate scene, yes, well, he's kind of like our eyes.
I mean, you do, I know, I get it. It's a plot device. I understand it. And it's Costner. He's great. Love it. Yeah. I'm just saying it's inaccurate.
Yeah. So any scene.
Well, I think
the most inaccurate is any scene where Costner does that.
Any scene where he is speaking in the XCOM.
Yeah.
Where he hasn't. I don't think there's one scene where they're all seated and O'Donnell's walking around the table like he's the president.
Yeah. Okay. So any scene where
I'll confine it to the scenes in the XCOM where O'Donnell is speaking.
Mm-hmm.
That's inaccurate.
Okay. Anyone who's listening and wants to butt in here and say,
Max Hastings does call this film out in his book, saying Donald's role is hugely inflated.
Right. Okay.
So it's not just me saying that.
No, sure.
What about our legacy rating? Because we do a legacy rating out of 5.
Well, if we're going to compare it to, I mean, we don't have to compare it, but my first thought was, if we're going to compare it to the film we're going to do next, then it's not a high legacy rating, I don't think.
But I think it's got a lot more interest in the last few years. I think a lot more people are into it. I think it's available on Amazon Prime at the moment. It's quite popular, I think. So
well, that's nice to know, but it's
at the time it was a disaster. But I would say I'd give it a 2 out of 5 legacy rating.
Legacy rating, okay. Yeah, well, hopefully. I mean, I think it deserves to be higher than that because it is. It's not. I mean, I've seen it quite a few times. There are no scenes. Okay, I can say this now, even though we're doing JFK next. But there are no scenes in this film which I fast forward. There are scenes in JFK I fast forward, and we'll get on to that. But this is a terrible thing to say, but it's any scene with his family that's not about the investigation, I fast forward. Because once I've seen JFK so many times. I saw it in the cinema. When you're into the actual.
Well, let's talk about JFK next time.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
because I think this film, the way it ends, Kennedy, Robert and John are in the area outside the
Rose Garden.
Is that what it is?
The Rose Garden, yeah.
And so by the way, there's a bit of black and white stuff going on in this film.
Yeah, that's one device I'm not sure about, to be honest.
Yeah, it's confusing.
Was it trying to be JFK?
I don't know. It's very confusing
because it doesn't. The black and white sequences don't signify or represent a different timeline, or they're walking along the corridor. It's black and white, and then they go into the Oval Office, and it blends into color, and you're like, why has that happened?
It is a bit weird.
So that's a bit odd.
One thing I should recommend to listeners is if you're interested in this period of history, there's a great novel, because this blends into the assassination as well, from the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Bay of Pigs, Cuban Missile Crisis into the assassination. It's a brilliant novel, American Tabloid, by James Ellroy. Amazing book. Really, really good.
Great writer.
Yeah. American Tabloid by James Ellroy. Did he write LA Confidential?
Yeah.
I haven't read that. I've only seen the film.
A sprawling epic.
Okay, so right, and now it didn't get any nominations for any kind of Oscars or anything.
No. That probably also aided its sleeper status.
But okay, so I find that very odd. If we look at the best film for 2000. In the 2001 Oscars, the nominations were Traffic, Erin Brockovich, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Chocolat, and Gladiator.
Yeah,
I mean, Gladiator's great, but Chocolat.
Gladiator's great. No, no, not worth. In fact, I mean, Juliette Binoche is very good in that, but it's not an Oscar-worthy film. The Traffic and Erin Brockovich, both Steven Soderbergh films, competing against himself. I think he won for Traffic, and then Julia Roberts won actress, and Russell Crowe won actor. I think Stephen Culp deserves a supporting actor nomination for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because there was a film that came out that year, The Contender.
Oh, with Gary Oldman and
yeah,
yeah,
which is a good film and everything, but it's interesting that a political drama gets the nomination and this one didn't.
No, I know. Absolutely, this one deserved it, in my opinion, over The Contender. The Contender's okay, but it's not better.
Okay, well, look, rolling on next week, we will be doing the big one, JFK.
Yeah. What's the? Have we done all the? I think we've done.
Categories? We've done the best scene, which is the Curtis LeMay Kennedy showdown. We've done the Simon Baker Award for best performance. Went to Stephen Culp.
Well done, Stephen.
And the Argo most inaccurate scene was any scene involving Kenny O'Donnell in the XCOM.
Okay.
And then we did the legacy rating of 2 out of 5. Next week, we've got JFK. Now, listeners, the film is 3 hours long. I suspect Tim and I are going to be talking conspiracy theories.
It may go on for a bit longer than normal. I mean, Oppenheimer was 3 hours long. Killers of the Flower Moon was 3.5 hours long. But I don't think it's to do with the length of the film. It's more to do with the fact that I think we both agree that we love JFK. I would say it's up there. It's just one of the best films ever made. So it may go on, but there is the addition of the fact that there is a debate of whether there's a conspiracy or not. That's just aside from the fact that there's a lot to talk about because the film is so rich.
And then in December, we're going to be doing Napoleon.
Yes, the new Napoleon film.
Indeed. Ridley called me and he sent me some screenings that we can both go to.
Fantastic.
So, brilliant. Tim, that's been great. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Been fun.
Listeners, thanks for listening. Yes, I just want to echo myself there. Thanks very much for listening. Plenty more great history to come. So please, please, please share, rate and review. Next week, it's Oliver Stone's JFK. In the meantime, thank you and good night.